Hi guys, I know it's been a while. I'm not sure what my schedule is going to be looking like for uploading in the future, but I just wanted to get my thoughts out about this because it has been eating away at me some, and life is looking a little better. It's a very slow process. I'm just trying to take things one step at a time and just try to work through things in the healthiest way possible. There's just so many things that are like flooding my mind constantly with the direction I want to go in life and like what my actual desires are now that I have reached the age that I'm at now. Um, I am not the same person I was when I began uploading. Well, when I was uploading after my detransition, I've changed very drastically. I privated a lot of my videos. For anyone who doesn't know, I brought some stuff back, but for anyone who doesn't know, it's new to my channel. I used to be a female to male transgender person. Um, then 5 years ago, I decided to go off of testosterone and resume living my life as my sex. I am biologically female. My voice and my appearance are permanently altered by testosterone. Um, I've gone through so many radical changes throughout the years, not just, physically. I've changed what I look like and changed who I am. Um, like how I have re-identified, or just coming back to reality, I would say, because, the fucking identity doesn't really mean anything anymore. I don't care to even hold on to it anymore. I've shed those layers a long time ago because they came from a place of trauma and emotional immaturity. Um, I've changed my belief systems at a fundamental level, and my desires for living my life and the trajectory of that has also become extremely different. And it's a place I never thought I would end up being in. And it's very hard to really acknowledge my feelings and acknowledge the truth of who I am as a person on a personal level, because I forever thought that I would end up being different. Like I would end up being not normal, with the person I am, with my sexuality, with my preferences, with my beliefs. I always thought that I would be kind of off the grid. Like I would diverge from the norm. And I've ended up at a place where it's just I made a 360 with so many things. um what I wanted to share was um just the thoughts that I'm feeling and the feelings about things that I'm having, about what I want my relationship with somebody to look like, the kind of person I would want to be with, and maybe following a more traditional route in life. And these feelings didn't start coming up until I reached 25. I'm 26 now. But when I turned 25, okay, so prior to turning 25, I considered myself attracted to both sexes. I really loved children. I always loved kids. As I started getting older, I started becoming more and more drawn to them, and I connected with them a lot better. And but I never thought that I would even want to have kids. I never did want to have kids when I was living as male, obviously. Like I was always fine with like the prospect of adoption, or the possibility. I was always fine with like being with women and marrying a woman, and that's ideally what who I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. Um But something happened to me like a little over a year ago, I would say, where I realized that a lot of what I thought was true about me um really was a coping mechanism for the to deal with the fact that I was not normal growing up, and that I felt very different from other women, and I had very low self-esteem as a result. I always had low self-esteem growing up. All throughout my teenage years, I felt horrible about myself, and I felt so different. And that primarily came from my relationship with my mom and the influence my mom had on me. Um, really was probably the biggest influence on the reason I transitioned in the first place, and her relationship with my dad, and growing up with my brother, who is, I have a physical disability, but I have a brother who has some cognitive disabilities and stuff like that. That did a number on me growing up. And so a lot of the women in my life, they weren't great role models, and there was a lot of shit going on when I was a child, that really is still affecting me to this day. My mom really wasn't. My family was going through a lot at the time when I was growing up, especially when I was like really little, like 4 or 5 years old. And so I ended up being very different. Like I ended up having a lot of like behavioral problems when I was a kid, primarily just due to my environment and due to just I think mentally, like I was just a little bit different. I think I have some hyperactivity or something, so that had an influence on the way I related to girls, because I didn't know how to do a lot of feminine things. I never really learned how, and my behavior was, I don't want to say it was masculine, but I was just very, I was a tomboy. I don't really think that makes me masculine. I think that's just, I'm just a different kind of girl. And that was just because I didn't have a lot of like a stereotypically feminine influence growing up, really, because there wasn't like a lot of room for that as a kid. Because there was a lot of stress and stuff growing up, so there was no room for me to really learn a lot about that kind of stuff. So I took after my dad a lot, and we did a lot of the stuff that he liked to do, and that's just kind of how it was. And so, but then, there were some other influences. So I had some behavioral problems, like I said, and, that caused my mom to get really frustrated with me. And there's a lot of shaming. There was a lot of anger that was taken out on me. And, it just felt very alienating being around my mom a lot when I was a kid. She would take out a lot of her stuff on me, and the situation my mom and dad were dealing with growing up. So my relations, when I related to other women, I just thought like, I wasn't normal. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't smart enough. I thought women were like smart, and they were they had sophistications about them that I just couldn't seem to grasp at that age. And it's not because I could not do it per se. It's just that I didn't have the influence at the time, and like relating to other kids was hard as a result. Obviously, that was worse than being at home sometimes, because like I was really misunderstood and outcasted, really. And so I just felt from a young age like I wasn't supposed to end up being like a stereotypical girl. It was kind of put in my head. I was just more masculine. I was more like, I just was kind of scatterbrained, just difficult, hard to understand, and so that's been a seed that's been planted in my head way into my adulthood even. And so I just kind of just had that in my mind and in my personal identity for the longest time. And then when I got to be a teenager, I spent so much time at home alone. I was in and out of school. Had a really hard time keeping up with school schedules, homework, and stuff like that because of, emotional shit that was going on inside of me, psychological problems from the way I grew up that had just stayed with me, were running me all throughout my life. Um, I spent abnormal amounts of time socially isolated throughout my life. And I think if it had not been that way, I would have ended up being more normal and more well adjusted and sociable, but I just wasn't, I was a byproduct of my environment and, you know, of my traumas and my negative experiences. They all kind of snowballed. So that's kind of why I'm at the point I'm at today in my life. I haven't really done much. I have a job and I function. I do the best I can. My social life is a work in progress. My social skills are a work in progress. I don't think they're terrible. I don't think I'm that bad at it, but I'm a person that's very in my head. Like, I feel very different and I feel kind of alienated still from the rest of society. Um, and it doesn't really show that. Sometimes it shows. I have some issues in my day-to-day life, but I kind of, they're mild, so I try to work past them. And I will talk about that more in the future, but to try to make it so this isn't like an hour long or so, um, or even like 45 minutes or 30 minutes or something. I'm just gonna try to stay on track. I haven't been doing this. I haven't been doing this for a very long time. I'm pretty rusty at doing this, but um, I uh, I always had this with me that I was just not going to have kids. I was not going to marry a man. I was not going to have the desire for that because I'm too different. I don't have the attractions. I don't want to be put in a position where I have to be feminine, even though now I am feminine, but like, I'm not going to have that dynamic of me between me and a guy, where we're like husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend, because I just feel like that would, for a long time, that would be a power struggle, and I wouldn't feel like I would be able to support that, um, because the polarity wouldn't exist there. And I know there's many different kinds of men. I know how, there's lots of different people out there, lots of different walks of life, different points of view, and you know, I used to just accept that. Like, I would just find a man who is special, or find a man who wasn't judgmental, find a bisexual man or something. Just a man that isn't straight, so I don't have to, go against the grain of what's normal and put myself in a position where I'm not feeling like I can fully express myself. And thought of having kids and stuff like that, I just didn't feel like it was possible, and I wouldn't have the desire, and I wouldn't want to go through the feminine process of having children and caring for them and staying home and stuff like that, which, women don't just stay home anymore past a certain point, obviously. It's not like I think women have to stay home once the kids are old enough, but like, I just, something just happened to me, and I started having desires to have kids, like a year ago, and I wanted to know what it's like to be married, just go through, these traditionally normal things or expected things that are within our culture. And there's people that just are not able to do those things because our society has changed so much, and I don't think people should have to have kids. I don't think people should have to get married. I don't think people should go along with what's expected of them, given the state of today's economy and everything in America. I get that. Um, but for me, it's like, all of a sudden, I guess I feel the biological clock ticking. I think that my brain has reached a certain level of maturity where my belief systems are not the same anymore. My sense of self has really just taken a bizarre turn, and I see things from a much broader perspective and from a bird's eye view. It just kind of, it's not like it happened overnight. It was like a gradual process, but it it's really kind of put me in this state of existential crisis where I'm just like, if I'm gonna do something, I've got to do it now. Um, but I'm in an inertia where it's like I don't feel like it's possible for me to make any progress in that direction. And realistically, obviously you can tell, like, someone like me would have a harder time finding a date. I would have a harder time having kids. I would have a harder time trying to live a normal life. I am here pretty noticeably altered by testosterone, um, by my voice. Like, I spent a good amount of time on testosterone. I spent 5.5 years. I was 15 and a half when I started testosterone, and I stopped testosterone at 21 in January of 2020. I started in May of 2014. So this has left a mark. I've been through a lot of weird things. A lot of people would look at me and think that I'm not normal. I still struggle with trying to pass as female sometimes. Especially if I just talk like this and my voice is deep, people think I'm like a male to female. And I'm not trying to blame people for thinking that. I get bitter and I get angry about it sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. This is a very hard thing to go through. I wouldn't wish on anybody else. I also just don't talk femininely. I don't have feminine speech patterns because I never really learned how to have them. I spent all my teenage years um, just trying to develop a sense of masculinity or a concept of masculinity that I didn't understand, and was really coming from a place of immaturity and stereotypes. Because, to me, masculinity is just something men possess. It's not something that women have, because I just think we think differently. We process information and express things differently. So, I still think like I'm feminine at a core, but like stereotypically and superficially, I never really developed those aspects because I was stuck trying to live a life that was not sustainable for me, and trying to emulate the opposite sex in a way that you know I now know it didn't come from a healthy place. So I had to make the decision to go back to myself. That's called detransitioning, but I don't like that word because, like, to me, I was always a female. I was always a woman. So, just for semantics sake, for understanding what I'm saying, I transitioned and then I detransitioned. And um, now I have a huge burden on my shoulders to try to fit the mold of society to some degree, in a way to where at least people can know what I am and they can understand, and then I can go the direction I want to go and I can have the opportunities I want to have. Um, and I didn't always want this throughout my detransition process. I thought, like, when I was first detransitioning, I was still male passing because, like, for a couple years, just for convenience's sake, because I didn't know how to fit myself into the broader culture and start to feminize myself, or just didn't think it was realistic. And I was still having a hard time getting over, my desire to want to be male and not want to be treated like a female, because I thought that would put me in an uncomfortable position where I would experience sexism. And because of the way I grew up and stuff, there's a lot of that stuff was staying with me and driving my decisions and thought processes. And then after a couple of years, I started experimenting with feminine stuff and or female clothes and stuff like that. And I got to a point where I thought I could do it. I could start passing and start working towards that and start, trying to integrate with other women as a woman and start trying to get recognized as a female once I kind of got over a lot of the thought processes that that drove me to try to be something different in the first place. And um um sorry. Um and I'm at the point I'm at now where, but I was still like, sorry, I was still, I didn't want to go all the way with trying to be a typical female. There were still things I wanted to embrace. Like, I didn't really shave parts of my body that women typically shave. I was still okay with my altered voice. And just certain aspects of me that were, read as androgynous by people. And as I that was around like 22, 23, and I started getting older. And this creeping feeling, the more I was around men at work, and I go around and see men, I find attractive men, I started having more and more attraction to men and the idea of me with a man as a woman and stuff like that. And I was already attracted to men when I was taking testosterone, um, but not in the sense like I'm with a man as a woman, like fully aware and not in denial and comfortable, playing a female role with a man. You know, what did I just say? But like I wanted to still kind of keep that barrier between me and a man where I wouldn't have to fully relax into who I actually was, even though at a psychological, deep subconscious level, that's actually really what I wanted as I was getting older, even on testosterone. And the effects of testosterone, I think, were exacerbating that process. They were accelerating it a little bit when I think about it, as ironic as that sounds. Um, but, I still wasn't fully evolved enough and mature enough to allow myself to go into that mental headspace. And now, as a detransition woman, at the point where I was like 23, 22, 23, I was finally able to relax in the way that, maybe I'm not gay, maybe I'm not even bisexual. And those thought processes drilled deeper and deeper into my head. The more I sat and thought with myself and just allowed myself to be introspective in that headspace. And I finally recognized it's like, I don't think I've ever been gay or bi. I don't think like that's really what I want. I don't think that's something that's going to sustain my life. For me, I don't think I could be with a woman. I can't marry a woman. I just think that I would get frustrated. I think that it wouldn't work. Because I like the way that men treat me. If they recognize I'm a female, I like the way that I'm treated. I like feeling that way. I like it when they make me feel that way. I like it when men make me feel feminine and make me feel like a woman, and make me, you know, I like male attention. I like male validation, and we all like validation. We don't always seek it out in the best ways. We don't always desire it in the healthiest ways, but we all want validation. We all definitely want to be validated in a way that's complementary to our sex. I mean, that's just never going to change. As much as women try to be like, "Oh, we don't need men. Oh, you know, I can be strong and independent, I don't have to rely on male attention or validation to feel like myself. I don't do these things with my appearance for myself or wear makeup for myself and blah blah blah." It's like that's just not true. We men and women need each other. Men and women desire each other. We do things in order to be attractive to the opposite sex and to be wanted and desired by the opposite sex. And that's fully what I've come to realize about myself, and I'm relaxed into, is like, I want a man to want me. I want the possibility of children. I want, I don't know what society's going to look like in 5 years. I'm not 100% sure, but I want it. I'm fully aware that I 100% want the possibility to exist in my future. And what's killing me right now, what's so painful for me right now, is that biological clock, if that's what it is just fucking eating at it's eating at me, and it's killing my soul. Like, it's hurting my soul to think about, because I don't know if I will ever reach the point I want to reach, where I will be attractive enough to a straight man who wants kids, who wants to follow a more generic or stereotypical lifestyle of what a heterosexual person looks like, if they will want me, if I will be attractive enough. Now, obviously, I have to do the work, and I'm going to do the work, because I need to move forward. I want to move on from my past and be a woman who is conventionally attractive enough, it's conventionally understandable enough, it is desirable enough to and to have the kind of life, for someone else to want to share their life with me. Sorry, that was a mouthful. And it's such a painful realization. I don't think that people understand how painful that is. Like, you grew up thinking that you were, not good enough, that you were basically a piece of human trash, that you were a complete outcast, unlovable, unlikable. Then when you get older, you've got all that internalized, so you act it out upon yourself, and you mirror that to other people through your life decisions, through your way you look, the way you carry yourself, your sense of character, and, that's why I'm at the point I'm at right now. And, and people don't get it. Like, you don't understand, like, you're going to make decisions when you're young, and you're going to think completely differently, and your brain is going to keep developing until you're in your mid-20s or later. Sometimes people never reach that point. I don't know. It just depends on who they are and what their environment and history has looked like, and the decisions they've made, how they were raised, But if you're a regular person, you're probably likely going to reach a point where you're going to completely, your mind is going to completely change, your set of beliefs is going to completely change. You're going to feel that biological clock, or you're going to feel something in your soul stir, where it's like, your biology is going to start to show itself in your desires, in the decisions you make, what you like and dislike after a while. And it's just going to be completely different from what you desire if you're somebody like me. There's a certain amount of people who've had my history where all of a sudden, they're going to want to have a normal life. They're going to want what's normal. They're going to want to follow the path of their biology, maybe not totally conventionally, or conventionally, it just depends on the person. But when you just start feeling like a certain way about, like, kids and men, and like that's like your clock ticking. But then it just feels like you can't overcome hitting a wall. I guess this is what hitting the wall feels like. But I feel like mine, it's literally the epitome of, if someone is watching this and they don't understand, like, the whole trans or detrans thing, and they don't understand the psychology behind it, and they don't understand what's psychologically running these kind of people. They just don't look beyond surface level, and they just watch somebody like me. They're just gonna think it's fucking funny. Like, I'm just a woman who's hit a wall because I had fucking penis envy or something. Or it's like I hated men and I got my karma or something. And it's like, I'm not saying I've hit a wall, but more and more as time goes on, it just that sinking feeling in my heart and in my soul just it just feels like that. Like, this is what hitting a wall feels like. Like, women, they're on TikTok or YouTube and they're complaining about their lives, and they're like, oh, or they're it's just a reaction video to those things, and then men are like, yeah, these women are hitting the wall because they're getting what they deserve because they made all these stupid decisions. They got run through, they went through a fucking tirade of hating men and all this shit. And it's like, not all of us are like that, like, there are some people like me. It's like, I've never hated men. I've never been like a feminist. I've never, even been normal. I've never even been leftist. I'm more right-leaning. I'm almost, you could pretty much consider me conservative. I was like that even when I was fucking trying to be something I wasn't, when I was trying to masquerade as a man. Like, I've never... It's not like I'm trying to become red pill here. It's not like I was getting involved in that community. I was just trying to expand my understanding of certain groups of people and trying to understand the psychology behind certain people who were saying in these kind of things, and we're in these echo chambers and stuff. And no matter what brand, what pill you're with, whatever the hell you want to call it, an echo chamber is an echo chamber. It's always going to get to a point where it's unreasonable, and there's always going to be people who say shit that's way too extreme, and it doesn't apply to reality because it's the internet. And I don't want to sound like I'm a person who got sucked into a rabbit hole and started believing all these things because of the internet. I just was trying to find myself, and I was trying to figure out what I actually wanted. And, there's very harsh truths, and then they're not even harsh truths. I mean, what's wrong with acknowledging your reality? What's wrong with acknowledging your biology and acknowledging that, your brain is wired differently because you're female and you want those things? What's wrong with not going with the status quo of women need to be independent and not need men? And, like, what's wrong with not being a fucking loudmouth bitch who just, can do everything on her own? I don't want to do everything on my own. I don't want to be alone. I don't want to have nothing when I die, and I don't want to work towards something and not have someone to share it with. There's no point in that. We're not supposed to be fucking alone. We're not supposed to be isolated. We're not supposed to work our entire freaking lives and not get some kind of reward from it. It's like men don't want to be in the situation where they have to do everything on their own either. That's why they have women. It's because women are supposed to balance that out. You're supposed to, there's supposed to be something at the end of it where you can live comfortably and you can live in peace, and not everything's about work and suffering and pain all the time. It just feels like I fucked myself. I was the one that wanted to transition, but like, I just wish I had that support where someone would tell me, you just need to go to school. You just need to get out of your head. You need to stop worrying and dwelling on these things, because all they are is you just having too much fucking time on your hands to overthink about everything because you're spending too much time alone in your head. You're too alone. You just don't have enough support. It will pass. I was a fucking victim. I was a victim of the system, of this fucked up culture we're in, where it's like, if you're a little bit different, then something is wrong and you need to change yourself at a fundamental level in order to seem normal to people. And if you have these traits about you, then you're going to get labeled masculine. You're going to get labeled, stupid, not good enough, defective. Oh, you just should be a man, or you should be a woman because you don't fit in enough, or you have behavioral problems, or If you're having problems with yourself, we have a pill to fix that. We have a treatment plan to fix that. I have a seed to plant in your head that's going to make you question reality and fuck up your psychology, where you're going to feel like you need that in order to live, when it's really a maladaptive coping mechanism. You know, this is the kind of shit that goes through my head every day. I am struggling. I feel like I'm drowning in this because I literally had no one. I still have no one. I feel like I've been left behind. And I'm left to pick up the pieces. Yes, I got to do something about it. But I just feel like people look at me and they think I'm a fucking freak. They think that I'm going to hurt their kids. They think like, you know, I'm a man trying to be a woman, trying to get in people's spaces. I'm just trying to use a bathroom and follow the fucking law. I'm following the fucking law. I got a vagina. I'm not going to use a men's bathroom. You know? Yeah, my voice is deep. Yeah, I look weird. It's because people were not there for me when I needed them. And now I have all these thoughts and feelings all of a sudden that I need expression. I need to go somewhere in life. I need something different from what I ever thought I needed. I'm a heterosexual woman who thought she was supposed to be a fucking lesbian and then be bisexual, who thought she needed fucking hormones in order to feel like she was good enough because she felt like she was a piece of shit all of her life. Like, I needed all this. When the answer was so fucking simple. It was so simple. I just needed to be fucking human. I needed someone to make me feel like I was human. I was good enough. You know? And that all my problems were not my fault. They were not because there was something inherently wrong with me. It's because someone fucked with my head from the time I was little. And I'm sorry. But this is the truth. This is the truth. I don't want this. I didn't want it. When I transitioned, I wanted to blend in and I didn't want to be noticed. I just wanted to live my fucking life. And now I have to work so much harder in order to make that happen. And there's no guarantee. Obviously I got to change my voice, but then I feel like I have to go as far as maybe even getting cosmetic surgery on my face because I have to hide this huge ass fucking forehead. I gotta hide my fucking forehead. I got this jawline. I got this thick fucking weird neck where my veins pop out if I'm not careful. And it's like, I look like I fucking was roiding, which I was. I was using fucking steroids. That's what I am, but people think I'm a man trying to be a woman now. And people think people don't fucking like that. It's a horrible life. It's such a limiting life. It's dangerous. And I know most people, they sit there and talk to me. They don't think I'm really that bad, but like, how the hell do I get a man? How do I have kids? You know, it's not like I chose to feel like this. I didn't wake up one day and just, decided like I got to live a normal life in order to be acceptable and seek validation from people. That's not the truth. It is a sinking, gradual fucking instinct that worms its way into your psyche, because that is what we are designed to do as sexual beings, as human beings and beings. We're designed to procreate. We're designed to, propagate, perpetuate the species, whatever. And it doesn't mean like you should have kids. It doesn't mean like you should, be straight or anything, or you have to live the trajectory of a life that's considered normal. No, but for most people, that's what they're going to end up wanting when they get older. Just because a kid is a tomboy, or there's a little boy who's effeminate and wants to wear makeup and do girly things, that doesn't mean they're going to grow up to be gay or lesbian. A lot of times it does end up happening, but that doesn't mean it will. It doesn't mean they're going to end up feeling shit about their bodies or about, internalize a culture where it's like, you do these things, you need to be the opposite sex, or you need to be normal. Most people grow up and they mature out of those things because it's just a phase in their development. It doesn't mean anything that deep. And just because a kid's saying, oh, I want this, I want to transition, or I can't stand myself, there's something wrong, whatever. It's not because there's actually something wrong. It's because there's something going in their life that's wrong. Like their environment, their parents' relationship. Sometimes their thinking might be a little differently. Maybe they have more autistic traits than normal. Maybe it's because of trauma. Trauma is such a huge one. I think trauma more than anything. But like, you know, no matter what, most people are going to grow up to be normal heterosexual adults. They're not going to be gay. Those things aren't supposed to just be normal. Being trans is obviously I think a form of gay erasure, all 100%. But just because you have, and even if you have some attraction to the opposite sex, it doesn't mean that you'll end up not being heterosexual. Because really, what the hell is being gay or bisexual? What are those things? What drives them? Because it just feels like human beings just have complex brains. Like, it doesn't mean you're not going to end up, developing some feelings for the opposite sex, because there's a lot of gays and lesbians end up doing that. A lot of gay and lesbian attraction comes from trauma and comes from, I think, maybe even neuroplasticity. That's the only thing that makes sense at the end of the day. There's no gay gene. There's no I don't know what the biological factors. It just means you're probably a different man or woman, and you're trying to find some way to find someone for you, despite you not being the norm. And, sometimes it's just like your attraction gets you get some cross wiring in your brain somehow from your life experiences. But I wasn't like that. I didn't even have any attraction to women as a kid. I never did. I spent too much time at home watching, going online, trying to figure myself out in my head, stuck in my head, having thoughts about things. And it's like, I don't really want to be straight, honestly, because I don't know what kind of man would want me, because I feel like it's been put in my head that I never will find one, because I'm not normal. I'm not good enough. I'm not feminine enough. Just because I don't do stereotypically feminine things, Just because you're a woman and you don't do stereotypically feminine things doesn't mean you're masculine. It's just, this video ended up kind of going all over the place, I know. I just haven't had anybody to really talk to about this, and I'm not trying to use y'all as a therapist. I'm just trying to get you to see what is actually going on in the head of somebody like me, so people can find this and they can realize they're not alone. Because it's a very fucking hard battle to deal with in your head every fucking day, and you're trying to make it work. And you realize, even just 5 years ago, you're not even near the same person. I'm not even the same person I was a year ago. The person you're looking at is a completely different person. And it's not because I'm trying to force it. It's not because I got sucked into an echo chamber. It's not because I want validation from people. I mean, like I said, we all want validation. But what I'm saying is, I'm getting older, and the biological clock is ticking. My brain is done developing in certain ways, and a fucking switch flipped in me. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I didn't choose this. And this is normal things. And imagine having a kid go on testosterone and transition all throughout their teenage years and into their early adulthood and you have a void where your life could have been had you had the right support, and had you had someone to help you work through that. Just imagine that for a second, like how fucking painful that is. And then you just have this fucking train land on top of you of fucking hard reality. It's like, no, you're not, this isn't right. This was all a fucking coping mechanism. This is just you running away from yourself. This was you trying to make sense of an abnormal situation you had to deal with growing up. Me thinking I was gay or lesbian, me thinking I was bisexual, and me wanting to transition and me, not wanting to go the direction of the norm was me coping with the fact that my fucking life was just fucked. It was me coping with the psychological hurt and trauma that I had dealt with all my life, because I was really abandoned. I was abandoned, and I was not taught how to do anything. I've lived my life in a shell for my entire existence, and I'm breaking free of it, and there's just, the destruction is visible. I've ruined my appearance. I've ruined my voice. I've altered my femininity in a way where people can't even recognize it. And do you understand how fucking painful that is? And then people just probably look at me and think I'm some fucking crazy, crazy fucking cat lady, or soon to be, well, I'm gonna die alone. Or they think it's funny because, I probably hated men, and I hated, patriarchy. I believed in patriarchy, and I was just another dumb, delusional, mentally ill woman, and whatever. Like, they want to just pile all this fucking shit on me, and it's like, I mean, this is becoming more and more of a growing perspective in our culture, and especially since, Trump's in office and everything, and all these policies and all these laws are going into place, putting a cap on the fucking disease of gender ideology, and then I get sucked up into that mix because someone looks at me and doesn't understand what the fuck they're seeing, like what I am. No, I'm a fucking woman. I'm a woman who was fucking left behind and was fucking cheated out of having a normal life. I was robbed. I was robbed. And I didn't do anything to deserve it. Nobody helped me. Everybody just saw my behavior as something that was so superficial, when in reality it was because I was fighting the isolation I was stuck in. I was fighting, not feeling good enough. I was fighting the low self-esteem I felt. I was trying to find a way out of that and make it so I could be reborn as this person, where I could try to overcome it and make my life easier, because I was fucking cheated. That is why. But I'm done, because this video is way too fucking long and it's insane. If you've watched this far, man, like, you got the attention span that's fucking god tier. So thanks for being here. I'm sorry. This is just so much negativity spewing out of me, and it's just very dark and bleak. But here's the thing: I don't believe I really hit a wall. I'm going to make the effort. I'm going to work through these things, because what else am I going to do? Am I going to fucking kill myself? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to suicide, because what's the point of that? And then I just reinforce and perpetuate this negative cycle that a lot of these people like me get stuck in. Like, you're not normal, or you're altered, so you should just die. Don't go out of your house, hide, or be normal, and, all that. It's just like, these things are a fucking work in progress. Like, I don't owe it to people to be, a fucking stereotypical mold of anything. But, I want to try to do what I can, so I can at least move forward, and I can have some more opportunities in life. And I want to be able to have people know that I'm not, a pervert. I'm not a man masquerading as a woman. I know most of them aren't actually perverts, but, like, what I'm saying is, in the cultural consciousness, like, I don't want to be recognized that way. I don't want to be seen that way, It's just, like, we're just people who have been hurt. We're people that got left behind. We're people that, the truth is, biology will always prevail, nature will always prevail. So you see somebody like me, I'm not like, I'm not someone who's out there to get attention. I'm not there to try to fuck with the system. I'm not there, to perpetuate these weird, bizarre ideas about reality that don't actually exist. I'm somebody who was fucking traumatized at a point in my life, and I took it out on myself when I was very young. I didn't know shit when I was young. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have the support I needed in order to grow into a normal person. That was the problem. And that's the problem with probably all detransition people is that, you know, whatever. I mean, we're all our sex. Trans and detrans aren't biological categories. They're just men or women. That's what we are. And that's what we have a right to be seen as. You know, everybody has a right to be normal. Everybody should have the inherent God-given right to have the possibility of wanting to be with the opposite sex as a normal person and wanting kids. Like, that should just be something that's granted. But no, I wasn't. Somebody fucking listened to what my dumbass was saying when I was fucking 15 years old, and it's like, okay, go ahead, go take steroids, see how much you like it. And you don't know what it does to me every day. You don't know how that affects me every day. Because I'm not the person I was. Even when I started detransitioning, I'm not the person that I was. But yeah, I'm gonna go.